Now, for this covenant, we don't necessarily need paper or computer or signing of signatures. No. Guess what replaces that? See, in a natural covenant, the document is filled out. Two parties read it to see if everything is in line which each other desire from this covenant. And then both parties or all parties sign that we all agree to what is written here. In a spiritual contract, that isn't necessarily the case. So, Kevin, what replaces the signing and all this other stuff? Sacrifice. But we ain't talking about sacrifice today. We will talk. I have a whole new teaching for sacrifice tomorrow. Okay. But today we just dealing with the covenant. So sacrifice would be equivalent to taking your pen and signing on and sealing this covenant. But again, we can deal with that tomorrow. So you see here a spiritual covenant. Let me pull this back up. A spiritual covenant is a binding sacred agreement or promise between a deity, such as God or any spiritual being, and humanity. Okay, or between individuals that establishes a deep spiritual relationship and outlines mutual obligations, promise, and blessings. Unlike standard legal contracts, they are considered spiritually binding and often involve solemn vows and sacrifice. I think I need to explain this a little bit more because, again, we're going deep after this here. I just need to get this out of the way. Let me tell you why a spiritual covenant is so serious, right? Because number one, and let's compare it to the natural covenant that we do every day, whether it's on the job, whether it's whatever. In a natural covenant, we could go to a data system or a file and pull out the contract, especially if there's some dispute and we want to take it to court. We could go and physically get that. We are aware of it. Kevin, uh, your great grandparents left you this land. Here is the deed. We have it physically. Here is recorded in the land and survey record. So even if I don't have it, it's still over there so that we could physically see, right? So I know. So anybody come to try to take my property, bye, this is my contract. This is my covenant. Let me show you what is so dangerous with a spiritual covenant. So a spiritual covenant, as you would have read, is an agreement between humanity and a deity or a spiritual being. There are no writing, there's no signing, there's no notarizing, none of that. You come, you make your claim of what you're going to do, you do the sacrifice, and boom, the deal is sealed. You may be the only one who's aware of this. Your family have no idea of this, nobody. However, it doesn't matter. This covenant, which is spiritual, between you and the spirit is going to ensure that this covenant is carried out, even when you are dead and off the scene. I'll give you a quick example of it. The Bible says uh, in Genesis chapter 12, God came to Abraham and made a whole heap of verbal promises to him, and what he's going to do. He left the man, he gone about his business, and showed up to Abraham again 20 years later in Genesis chapter 8, in Genesis chapter 15, almost 20 years later. Abraham is much older now, and the initiator of this covenant is for Abraham to have children to fulfill, because the promises that was made to Abraham initially, he had to have had children for it to be, achieved. God shows up 20 years later, and there is no children with Mr. Abraham. He's now almost 199, somewhere around there. His wife Sarah is a couple of years behind him. They can't bear children anymore. So Abraham said, well, God, how am I supposed to be assured that everything you're saying to me is going to come to pass? So God told him to set up an altar, get some animals, make the sacrifice. You see where the covenant's being done now, which replaces the physical signing and so on. And Abraham goes into a deep sleep, and God now begins to show him and reveal to him what's going to happen. You drop down to verse 18 of Genesis 15. It says, and that day God made a covenant with Abraham. Now, what's the beauty of this? Now, years go by. God already promised him, I'm going to make your seed great. Your descendant will be blessed because of what we're doing here and everything. Years go by. Abraham had a son by the name of Isaac. Okay. Isaac, God showed up to Isaac in Genesis 26. And when he showed up to him, because remember, they were going through a famine, and the Lord said to him, do not leave Gora, where you are, stay right here and I will bless you. Then he identified himself. I am the God of your father Abraham, and I will carry out the oath that I have made with him. But hold on, this is Abraham's son. That's right. And he's also being affected by this covenant that isn't in a document form, that wasn't even signed. There's none of that to prove it. It doesn't matter, because a spiritual covenant only requires a human being in the spirit to solemnly agree, have a sacrifice to seal the agreement. And whether the original person who signed on with this, who agreed with the spirit, exists or not after this, it doesn't matter. Now we're going forward. And so the spirit that the covenant was made with, the agreement was made with, is now assigned to that bloodline. It didn't end there. So after Genesis 26, when God appeared to Abraham's son Isaac and promised him, I will bless you, so on and so forth. And he told him why? Because of the oath or the covenant that I made with your father Abraham. We shoot over now to Genesis 26. That's right. Abraham now has a grandson, right? Which would be the son of Isaac. His name was Jacob. Jacob, now in Bethel, one night he was tired, sleepy, out in the desert somewhere, grab a rock, lay it down, and let's run on a pillow, and rest his head on it as a pillow. And he went into a dream, and he had a vision where he saw the staircase going to the heavens and angels ascending and descending. And the Spirit of the Lord began to speak to him. And how did he identify himself? Jacob, I am the God of your forefathers, of your grandfather Abraham and your father Isaac. Why is the Spirit of God not only identifying himself to the descendants of Abraham, but why is he sticking in this bloodline? Because of the spiritual covenant. So here's what I want to tell you from the get-go. Spiritual covenant dictate the destinies of people, communities, nations, countries, continents, you name it. But the problem with this, though, is that those who are being controlled by it don't notice. Those who are being controlled by it feel they're doing their own thing. But if they look back, they will see a consistency, either a consistency of blessing, if it's a blessing covenant, or a consistency of negativity, if it's a curse covenant. I'm trying to help you. I just want to help those so they can say a lot of people are there talking about covenants and altars now. And I don't want you to just tell the surface no more. I want you to really see what's going on. So when I say the Bahamas, my country, which is unequivocally clear to me, anybody who have the Spirit of God in them and they know things spiritually, the covenants are speaking right now. Altars are literally speaking to the destiny of the Bahamas right now, with the consistency of tragedy, the consistency of just problem after problem. And you may say, well, that happens everywhere. And guess what? You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It happens everywhere. But the Bible says, he that have eyes to see, let him see. And he that have ears to hear, let him hear. And I'm saying to you, and it doesn't matter if you believe me. I'm trying to help you. You ain't got to believe that. I'm just telling you. When you look at things through a spiritual lens, there's a spirit. There's a spirit that has the right. Listen to me carefully. God can't even stop the spirit. Boy, Kevin, now hold on. I was listening to you before, and you was making sense, and I like you. But you can tell me, boy, you crazy? No. It's context behind what I just said, and we can get there. Because I'm telling you, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, I want you to hear this. He honors and respects all covenants, good and evil. That's why I can make that statement. And let me give you an example of it. They work witchcraft on your children, on your husband, all right? You've been praying. Why the covenant ain't break yet? Why the OB ain't break yet? Because there's a legal covenant in place. Nobody forced nothing on nobody. They were open to sin. Because of that sin, the evil covenant, the spell that was placed on them, have a legal right. The scriptures are clear, because only when you know laws is going to make sense. Proverbs 26 verse 2b, the curse without a cause cannot come. Because there is a cause, God got to fold his hands. You all got to get it right. I am all powerful. I am all great, but I abide by my laws. I cannot intervene here. I cannot break this up here. The people call up the spirits. The people made the agreement. Now all hell is going to break loose. You know what he would tell you do? You want me fix this? Break the covenant. You want me fix this? Come against the altars. But jumping around and shouting and saying, let's go do this and do that and shandala, that ain't gonna change nothing.